Yeah, my head's at that line. Your head's pretty much at that line. We should be good.
We'll be good enough.
Yeah.
All right. So
Let's make this a Wes Anderson film.
what's funny is I could find a way to try to keychrome this.
Oh my god. No, you could do like put stuff on there.
That'd be funny.
Yeah.
We're in space.
Ah!
Hello and welcome to the Tilted Roll podcast. We are back again
Hello.
in video form.
Finally.
What a joy. I know I sound very excited.
It's been a long day for the two of us.
It has been a very long day, but we are here recording for you and you alone. Just you. You.
Yes.
You. I'm out of focus now, but you.
All right, back up there, friend.
It's okay. So what are we talking about today?
Well, we're talking about how my name's Francisco and your name's Marshall.
Oh my God.
You always forget
I know
that we have names.
that we should introduce because there
Right.
could always be new viewers. Yes.
I would
And in
complain.
fact,
I would complain if he pays me, but he doesn't. So
well, and in fact, this is even a better, even more viewer-friendly episode. Why, you may ask? Because we're talking about our show, Shadows of an Empire, but not just talking about it. We're talking about the 2 years that we have been running this campaign,
oh yeah.
and it doesn't feel like it.
No, it's crazy how much stuff has happened in the last 2 years.
It really is. I mean, I wasn't going to school in the same place when we started this campaign.
My entire Marine Corps career happened within these 2 years.
You're correct. For better or for worse.
For better or for worse.
And yeah, no, there are so many, there are just so many different changes and whatnot that happened within these 2 years, and yet this show has really still just been a very good staple for kind of what was the basis of what we wanted to do for Natural One, and will still obviously be that baseline in terms of at least maybe not Shadows itself, but just what we do on that live stream.
Oh yeah.
To
put in perspective, back then when we started Empire, Shadows of Empire, which I can never get the title right. Even it's been 2 years, and I still say Empires first. To put in perspective, back then the channel wasn't even called Natural One. It was back on your YouTube channel.
Well, it wasn't on my YouTube channel. It was on my Twitch.
Yes.
And that was the thing. So yeah, when we started this, I was not thinking of starting Natural One the way that Natural One is. I was thinking of just starting it this is just going to be a special thing I do on kind of my stream, because that's when I was still really trying to push my stream and its platform. But the big thing that I really kind of realized was that this was something that I really wanted to push more of, not just have it be the subsection of my channel. I wanted it to be something that I wanted to do more D&D content. And that was when, while he was off in the Marines, I came up with the idea of kind of making just Natural One just its own show.
Right. And if nothing else, the Marine Corps, what it taught me was that I really wanted to play Dungeons and Dragons and not be there. Yeah.
And not be there.
But no, I love my time there. But coming back and being able to do this again and being able to do this with more commitment now is something that I am very grateful for.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was the thing is obviously I could have asked pretty much anybody to help me out with this project, especially one that maybe was more available at the time.
Yeah.
Because I asked somebody who wasn't anywhere near within the state or even the next 3 states of me. I asked somebody who is halfway across the country to do this partnership with. But that was the thing is the reason
He's dead now. I'm here now. I took his spot.
The reason I chose, that I wanted to do this with you is because I knew that you kind of had that very similar level of commitment to maybe almost a fault, where you read the book so much you think you know everything, but then every time I listen to these podcasts, I learn things that you were wrong about.
Well, at least you learn things.
The idea that supposedly D&D Beyond was only in 2019 or 2018, which it was not.
Okay, listen.
That's one.
Yeah, that's one out of many. I'm not a perfect being, but yes. But Yeah.
But yeah, so we started. So, but it started on my Twitch page,
Yes.
which was again, it was mainly just because I really wanted to play D&D again, like more consistently. And at this time, I wasn't part of this Friday campaign that that I eventually joined. The shop we were at last week, and others I was in the past.
I wasn't even part of it. Back
Exactly.
then.
Well,
Yeah.
and exactly, and there just wasn't. I didn't have like really, I guess, any outlets you could say, to much of D&D. We played. I don't even think we played it all really up until that point, because that was kind of around when you were really like when we started this campaign. It was right around when you were kind of starting, I guess.
I no.
Well, like I meant like maybe more in a more committed like aspect to it.
I would say I had been doing. No, during that time I had been doing Adventures League, but I've always wanted to do more and more D&D.
Right.
I just came to love it more and more.
Right. And the thing was, it was a really great way for me to. I was just like, I really want to find a good way to be able to do a campaign. Well, I was like, well, if I can kind of create like a stream version of it, I think it would give me more incentive to keep a group together. Because my problem for forever when I was in high school was just not being able to keep groups together. Always having schedule conflicts, blah 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 blah. Just never being able to get a schedule done.
It's a common recurrence for if you're DMing and you're trying to keep your group. Just people have lives, and you understand that. It's simple, but it's also difficult when you want to like consistently play.
Right, especially like
Dragons.
if a number of people have trouble with that consistency. Which is a topic we could talk about like in another podcast. In order to keep that. But that was kind of my answer. My answer was to make it a show, because in a way I'm kind of being like, hey, like if you're joining this with us, right? Like we're gonna kind of want a little bit of commitment, like some energy and forethought, and like, hey, maybe sometime in the next month, like let's try to plan these far enough ahead that maybe you could like ask off or do whatever.
Right.
We made it work for a relative point, and then eventually we realized like, hey. We seem to generally be free on Wednesdays and not have to work. So let's just do every Wednesday night, since that seems to be the night every time we've picked this. The last, like, there was like a straight line of like 6 different like weeks or so, like within like a 3-month period. They were all Wednesday night at like 7 o'clock or like 8 o'clock. And we would go for we would go for a while, or even sometimes would kind of be maybe a little bit earlier, or it would change, it would fluctuate.
Right.
So that was the thing, is it was like, oh, well, why don't we just make the episodes shorter, so they're not like these like 1 month but like 5 hours long. But now we just do a 2-hour show every week at the same time.
Right.
That'll help us consistency. That'll keep us going, and it worked. Honestly, I mean, just at least for having the campaign work, it worked out really well.
Yeah, I mean, back then I believe the first few sessions we were doing it on Thursday.
And we changed a number of times. Like we did some on Saturday, we did some on Sunday.
But in reality, like the first few showings, we were just whatever day worked.
Yeah, exactly.
We would just go. We were like, let's record this. We got this. I was just happy to be a player for the first time in a while. Because I during that time I was just DMing Adventures League the entire time. I never really got a chance to play, so I was on top of all this. Like, it's like Marshall asked me, make a character real quick, and I'm like, I already have it down. It's all here. Please put me in, coach.
Please. No. So like, so that was something that we really wanted. Like, kind of, we were thinking on the ride here, just like, well, what is something that we think that we should do? And I really had the idea, because like he brought up the idea of like, Dungeons & Dragons isn't just a game you can enjoy playing. Like, obviously you enjoy playing it, but there are a lot of great sets of content out there to be able to enjoy this game as well, and like more, than just playing the game. You could
Right.
like there was like a description we gave in the car where I was like, it's kind of like listening to an audiobook in a way, but instead the book is being like written to you, read and written to you at the same, like live at the same time.
Exactly.
Like, as you're listening to it, you are reading a story as it is being written.
And just to help people understand, it's like a video game let's play in a way. It's
In a
just
way.
more actually greatly more unpredictable in what could happen.
Right, and that's what makes these types of shows so interesting. And we were having the idea like maybe we should talk about more of those. And I was like, well, you know what? Honestly, like we're getting very close to really when like we've had like our first sessions because those kind of got lost in the ether.
Oh yeah, unfortunately,
some
thank you,
rough
Twitch.
times, but but that's the thing. So like we you know like we don't have a hard date of like when our first session was, but like still no matter what like. I knew it was roughly around this time, and I was like, wow, you know, like I had a realization one day. I was like, wow, we're almost at 2 years. Like, it's been a long time.
Yeah, we started when we were
snuck
20,
up on me.
Yeah, we started when we were 22, and now we're both
24.
Yeah.
Weird how math works.
Yeah, right. Not any wiser, but
no, we didn't upgrade that stat.
No, that's it all went to charisma.
Ooh, and we're still low at that. We're still lacking at that
Shh, don't tell them
that. So that was kind of one thing I thought like, well, it'd be great then if we did a topic around kind of the story and almost kind of doing a nice catch up, because that's one thing we were kind of always missing on this channel was what the lore and like the story so far had been. Like it's been going on for 2 years. There's a lot of stuff that's happened. They were level 3 when they started this. Now they're level 14, you know, or no, you guys, sorry, I'm thinking of a different campaign. You guys are level
13. We're 13.
Yes. And
lucky number right there.
But yeah, so that's the thing is, so like they're 13 now, like 10 levels have happened. Obviously there's a small skip, but even then, like there's been this like time, you know, like a lot of things have happened to them, and I felt like this would be a great platform to be able to be like, hey, not only should you watch Shadows of an Empire on our Twitch page, which is in the link in the description, but you can use this podcast as a great way to kind of understand and learn the events that have happened up to this point and a little bit of the lore of the land.
Right. Because like Marshall said, I believe the very first few sessions, Twitch has unfortunately gobbled up.
Well,
the void.
That was on our Natural One page. The first few sessions, like on my Twitch page, they weren't VODed because I was really bad at taking care of that kind of stuff back then.
All right.
No, it was on our Natural One page. There was some issues. Like timing got off. We got like screwed up and off. Hold on. Yeah. Well, but the thing is, we're still talking about stuff, so it's like it can't just cut there. That's because. Do you know exactly what you were saying 1 minute ago?
No, because it was you talking.
Exactly. I don't remember what I was saying.
All right.
So that
But you were explaining how you were terrible at keeping track of all this.
Right. So yeah, no, like I was really bad at taking care of that stuff then. So there was some stuff that happened though with the Natural One page at the start of those VODs. I had some tough time like trying to keep track and there were some problems getting the VODs highlighted. There was like a weird timing with an expiration on one. Like, I remember what happened with the first episode on Natural One's Twitch page is when I made like it back on my channel, I was obviously used to all the VODs already being set to be saved. But when you make a new Twitch page, it is not on by default to have all of your streams VODed for 2 weeks. So I had to turn that on.
Okay.
And I didn't realize this. So like we would end streams and there would be no VOD. And I'd be like, what? Where to go? So that was the reason the first 2 episodes are gone. There was one where I had misjudged the date of its deletion or how long it had been because we took a break through one of the weeks. So I forgot to VOD the last week's episode.
Right.
So that's why we lost 1 episode as well. I think it's mainly it. But on the original channel, it was way worse. So let's finally get into it. So apart from normal, for this first part, you'll probably take somewhat of a backseat on just because you weren't around for it.
Okay.
Because I wanted to start kind of the storytelling of this campaign with a small interstitial campaign that we did pretty much right after Franny left for the military.
Oh yeah, that was a fun time.
Yeah, and this was a campaign, a special campaign we did called the Dimension Crisis. However, it directly ties into things that happened in Shadows of an Empire. So the start of it was that they were just kind of part of this mercenary group, and they were playing. So at the time, it started with four players who were all but one also in Shadows of an Empire. I had Bennett, who now plays Cedric in Shadows of an Empire, replacing Francisco.
Yep, that's me.
So they were, and so I had them all. They were part of. Let me double check the name here. I've brought my my handy dandy DMs book,
right,
to
and
help me with any specific information that maybe I've forgotten.
And to everybody who's looking right now, you'll see that I'm not looking down because I'm trying not to get any spoilers to whatever you might have read down. But
I have nothing. There isn't much in here that is new, especially not this far.
Oh yeah, but fun fact,
you're pretty far back in time.
Oh yeah, but fun fact, Bennett is one of our college friends that we both met back when we were both attending the same university 6 years ago now.
Yeah, that's and I would say because we met him because he was a year behind us. We met him in 2014, so 5 years ago.
Yeah, so we know him for 5 years.
But
He's
still,
a good friend. Yeah.
So they were part of the Mage's Book, which was their like mercenary / like guild. They're like adventurers guild. So they were originally set on a job to kind of the world that they were in was like heavy in magic. It was like I guess you could say it was like a renaissance, if you will, or like a golden age of magic and magical technology. It was so one of the things that was very apparent around the world were portals into, I guess, the other planes of existence. Like almost like the interdimensional travel was very connected.
Mm-hmm.
So as a result, one of the things that obviously was a high priority, because they were high level going into this this campaign and this setting.
I think you started them at level 10.
Yes.
Or am I wrong? Yes. Okay.
So they were pretty high level going into it. And that was because like the idea was they were kind of one of the higher, tiered like hires of this mercenary guild.
Not the highest. They're not the A team. They're the B team.
Well, and that was the thing. It's like, you pretty much went any higher, you went to like people that are hired for like royal duties and whatnot.
Oh man.
So that was the thing. So it was like I put them in a position that they were more available, but to do like some jobs, but important jobs that were just more outgoing though. So they were kind of going out to take care of this portal towards the Shadowfell, and that was when they first learned of the kind of rival antagonists that they were going against, which was the forces of Vul, a mind flayer who is essentially supposedly building an army from Shadowfellan forces / anybody who is wishing to conspire with him to gain an undetermined end goal. They really didn't know what that goal would be.
I know none of this.
Well, I'm just saying, at that point, neither did, like, people in the world didn't. It was just like they just knew it was this threat that was like looming in the Underdark, or I shouldn't technically, yes, the Underdark, but I just mean like in the underbellies of the cities. And that somewhere this, was around. That will be fun to deal with, this fan. I apologize. It's part of the fact that we're recording in a non-normal spot, but I wanted to be down here mostly just because it was the most convenient for us to film in, because I got these lights and I didn't want to bring them up into the what essentially is supposed to be our normal recording space.
But hey, don't worry about it. That's all back behind the scenes stuff.
But the noise is there, so that's why I want you to be aware.
Enjoy it. It's nice. It's calm.
So yes, no, the benefit of, what they were kind of going, so then what they were meant to do is essentially just continue to find more and more information about Vul and his forces. So eventually they were sent on a secret mission essentially to go find what was supposedly going to be a hideout for Vul's forces. That was where they met a character named Asher, which was the one of the few only very minor amount of times that Franny was available for that campaign. And
you could just say one.
Was it only once?
It was just one session.
Okay. No, there was supposed to be a second one. I remember. I think.
Yeah.
And then I just kind of. It was something to do with either me not realizing the timing that was there, or not real, or like it was some error kind of on my part. But
yeah, it was like right after I came out of boot camp.
Well, that was the first time. But I just mean there was supposed to be a second one for at some point, but I don't remember what it was. But so anyway, so he was able to join in as Asher, and to kind of almost guide them through this dungeon that was Vool's kind of base, because he was kind of essentially the scout of the mage's book. Like he would kind of, even though like they were supposedly this hot team, because they're essentially their boss Devin. Did not really, because like they were kind of looked at in the community, at least in that the guild communities and whatnot, as relatively like high tier, I guess like mercenaries and like adventurers.
Yeah.
That he didn't really want a huge risk of really bad things happening to him. So the idea was obviously sent an Asher to go kind of solve or kind of scout out. So like Asher was the one who mainly found the way in, and then he just like teleported them right to Asher.
Pretty much.
Instead of just being like, hey, go through these perilous areas to go find the entrance to this this secret hideout. No, instead I'm just gonna send you sneak in there by yourself, and then I'm just gonna teleport 4 people onto you.
Funny enough, Asher was a Shatterkai originally.
Yes. And so we'll get to that. So they eventually went through. They found some kind of secrets about possibly what Vool was trying to do with his forces, and then eventually, Asher had shortly left their services in order for another project, and in that dungeon where they were in the base, that was where one of the many times that I have used Dylan's backstory, for better or for worse, maybe for or against him. Where I had the great Elder Oblex make a projection of his lost or his former lover and baby mama.
I remember that. That's cool.
Because then that's the thing, was the realization that he was able to have due to an intelligence roll about the Oblex, was that when an Oblex projects an image of like somebody, that means that they have consumed them, essentially them in their essence. So that was essentially his realization that, oh no, my lost lover, my baby mama, has perished. And that was a good moment, kind of a nice role playing moment for him. But yeah, so they eventually did move from that, and he eventually did move on. There was a player or like a character break for a small period of time while they got more information about whatever it was that the situation they were in terms of like the story aspect.
Yeah.
So they were able to get some time to kind of the characters were able to get time to decompress, kind of be able to go through certain things and kind of gauge what they were able to do. Moving on from that though, then they finally were given the word of exactly what was going on and where Vool was attempting to go. So they finally took essentially a private speed airship, which allowed it to go much faster and much higher than normal airships. So they went to essentially what became the capital land of the capital city of the country, or I should say, the kingdom that they are a part of, that is generally in charge of the most important portals, the ones to hell and the one to the abyss.
Both great places for vacations.
I know.
You should definitely go.
That's partly why they kind of very much kept them very protected. However, Vool was able to find a way into the city and launch his attack, in which case the party, all through some happen circumstances of kind of getting through some harrowing skyfalls and a couple of illusion magic, was able to find themselves together and in the main castle, in which eventually they were able to fight their way to Vool himself, and they were with a special wizard, an elven wizard, named Serenthal, and he, in the penultimate moment of finding Vul and him attempting to summon the great old demon prince Zargon, who is banished to the abyss. He broke his mage's staff, and they were whisked away into nothing, but instead were replaced by a giant Nightwalker. However, the heroes of Dimension Crisis were able to defeat the Nightwalker, and then they found themselves awoken as the castle, and they felt like the land kind of crumbling beneath them. They all got to a bright white light and woke up in their beds with a red gem next to their essentially next to wherever their like nightstands or whatnot were. And so they kept that into their families, and those were passed along for generations as they went through a multitude of secrets, which will find themselves revealed more and more if you do continue to watch Shadows of an Empire. But yeah, so they kind of eventually then this led to, so eventually now we go to the actual beginning of Shadows of an Empire.
Oh man.
So there was, I'm going to make this note now because we're going to give this story as it is canonically at the moment. So there was a period of time in this campaign where Francisco was playing a warlock.
Yes. So
I say a period of time.
Fun fact, Pathos started out as a Fey Pact warlock, and that was a fun time. I'm not gonna lie.
I'm sure you love the warlock.
I do. It's a great class, only beaten by the bar by the slim amount. But yeah, up to certain events, he was a warlock, and a pretty good one at that. Actually, they managed to get out of prison because of his warlock abilities.
Well, in that timeline.
Yeah, in that timeline.
Because now there's. And then what happened was, eventually, so as you know, on Natural 1, we have a very special type of
punishment
ability, a very special thing when you roll a Natural 1, which is our critical fail chart, which we are making our own of still currently, trying to work on.
And I think I still hold the record of most Natural 1s on stream.
Probably.
Yes.
So he rolled one to pull a card from the Fates deck. Well, that one was Death.
It's a deck of many things.
The deck of many things, sorry.
Yes.
And yeah, the one he pulled was Death.
Yeah.
Which is probably the most unlucky one he could have got. So as a result, but due to some...
It's on brand for Pathos.
But due partly to me not reading certain parts of the Avatar of Death rules.
Right.
Like, it wasn't because, like, I fudged, like, the way that it works. Like, I just didn't read one line that said it automatically hits its target. I did not read that, so they were whiffing on each other a lot in their duel. There's a lot of whiffs. And he was saved by, miraculously somehow though, even though nobody can inherently assist somebody in a duel with death, was able to be assisted by his fun little compatriot Q, which we'll talk about in a second.
Oh yeah. Love that little guy.
But and that saved his life and allowed him to defeat the Avatar. Now, when you defeat a Avatar of Death, you get nothing.
No.
There is nothing. There's no experience. It doesn't drop anything. You don't get Death Scythe, right?
Which would be cool. I would love that.
But there's no scythes in 5e.
Unfortunately.
But so I wanted to give him some type of reward for actually succeeding, despite the fact that it was due to my own incompetence at the time to not understand how you could succeed. But I was glad he succeeded anyway, and so I wanted to give him a reward one way or another. So I allowed, essentially, I created a stack pooling of the deck of many things, and I allowed him, and I had him draw again. But it was stacked for a certain amount of things, so there was nothing like that would outright kill him or whatever, but things that could be drastically different or just give him something cool or really not do much of anything at all. as is true in the Deck of Many Things.
Yes, and the card I got after that was the fake card, which I believe, I don't know the exact terminology to it, but it essentially lets you redo one thing in your past.
Yes, you. So the essentially the effective terminology of it was that this will, if you will, you can make a decision, or you can change one decision in your life, and that can be at like any time.
To very observant listeners right now.
Yes, Andy, stop. And you got to stop pointing out these things every time, by the way.
Who, me?
Like when we have like cuts or stuff like that.
Wait, what?
Like every time we do like a cut or something weird happens off camera, you always reference it in the podcast.
No, I said, I was going to say to very observant listeners right now, you'll see where this is going.
Yeah, I thought you were going to talk about the fact that
No.
you're potentially in my dog. Because I was going to say, you do that a lot.
I do. I will
which
give
is
you
not
that.
good practice. But yeah, so what were you going to say this too?
Okay, start off. To observant listeners right now, you will notice that you can kind of see where this is going with me saying that Pathos was a warlock.
So yes, he chose to. There was an event in his background.
Yes. Primarily, he was surrounded by a couple of former comrades of his in the Dern army.
Yes,
and he was about to get killed.
Yes, and he had originally chose to make a path with a strange, mysterious voice that had made a pact with him, and you know he was able to become a warlock, and he was saved. That as a part of that, it offered to save his life, but you had to make a pact with it.
Yeah,
that was what the choice he was given, and he took it. He chose to say no.
Fast forward a couple sessions, and I died. But before I technically died, the fake card activated because the card.
Okay, so this was just after you picked up that card. You didn't use it right away. But I was kind of skipping over that just for the safety and sanctity of time.
That's true. It needs to be said just because it's a pretty good thing.
But I'm just saying. So eventually, you were forced to use the card.
Yeah, and Marshall here thought I was gonna be like
I choose not to stab the guy.
Exactly.
I choose not to walk forward and go in front of a guy where I have barely any defenses and be in his melee range and attack him directly.
But Francisco, don't do simple.
No.
I essentially made Marshall retcon the entire campaign.
Yeah, so he chose
up to that point.
He chose not to accept the pact. But as a result, there have been a sequence of events, which we'll now get to.
Oh, yeah.
So now we are in the correct timeline of Shadows of an Empire. And so, we are in the current canon timeline.
Right.
And in that, they are our heroes, our adventurers, started as Tariq, Serafina, Jet, and Pathos.
Hello.
However, started this adventure at level 3. Talric, Jet, and Serafina in their own backgrounds and different experiences began this campaign in a jail cell, much like many other Elder Scrolls games. But this, however, did not lead you to a Norse accented man in a cart, but instead,
or Patrick Stewart.
But instead, a more, I would say, brutish woman clad in armor, who was ready to persecute them, ask them a numerable amount of questions.
Oh my God, I have her name written down somewhere.
Probably.
Yeah. Sorry. Continue.
But that was disrupted by a massive disturbance outside, and to which there wasn't much. Nobody really found an answer for. But then they were saved by as they were rescued by Poe, the cleric, and Pathos, the paladin.
That's me.
And you'll notice if you're a current listener or watcher of the show that he was not a cleric. We'll get to that in a bit. We'll get to that in a while. That one actually has a canon reason, but so in canon he was still a paladin at this time.
Mm-hmm.
So he and Poe came to save the day, and they rescued the party because there was a significantly reduced guard level by their cell, and so they were able to defeat the guards that were there, sneak around the castle, and find a secret tunnel. In that secret tunnel, they went to a very burnt down, I guess you could say like a church, what kind of looked like a church almost, like a very massive kind of cathedral.
Yeah, that's the best way to term it.
Yeah, but it seemed to be burnt down.
Mm-hmm.
It was very run down. There was like the stained glass was broken.
Terrible tenants.
Apparently.
Yeah.
But there you all met a very friendly creature, very friendly fox creature
By the name of Q.
Well, he wasn't named anything at this point.
No, and you'll see where he got the name in a little bit.
Yes, but and he had eventually you had followed him because you were hearing what sounded like children's laughter,
Mm-hmm.
and you were lured by this in curiosity, and then he posed a question to you that whether or not you would accept a task, and essentially, if you were to finish that task and succeed, that it would lead to something much different. And thus you were given one of what would be one of many, I guess you could say, like mind gamey events, mind puzzles.
Oh man!
In which I asked you guys a series of questions. It wasn't like a game show where you gave the wrong answer or not, but a sequence of questions that were judged, that you were judged upon by people, creatures, beings,
right.
beings that exist.
I believe, Marshall, you told us that there was a very real chance that our characters, if we answered incorrectly, wouldn't be in other sessions.
Yep.
So that's how serious it was. And he tells us this after the fact.
Yeah. No, I mean I wasn't gonna tell you beforehand.
No, but
Might
good.
change your answers.
Good practice, yeah.
So that's the thing, and so nobody was demolished. Nobody was destroyed for being a false carrier, and they were able to move on, and they were kept with the small fox creature, which very much interestingly attached itself to Pathos quite firmly, or at least it seemed to kind of imprint on you in a way.
Okay. And Pathos.
Keep going.
All right.
I can't see the time code from where we're sitting.
Okay. Hang on. All right. So right here.
You gotta stop, because that's why you gotta keep going, because I don't want to keep cutting.
All right. So Pathos names the little fox thing Q after the man who raised him. Kulanov, a half of man from, I forget, Jagerstead is the town we decided on. And after that, Q stayed with us for a good while, for a while into the adventure. When did we meet Silica?
So you met Silica after Poe.
Yes.
So we'll get to her. It actually is a little bit. So you all went eventually after Q. You were essentially guided into what looked like a very rundown cabin that had no one living in it.
Mm-hmm.
And then this crazy, weird elvish wizard came out of the woods, and all of a sudden just like walked into this dilapidated home, and then told you to come in. And Poe followed right after him, which kind of inclinated the rest of you and Poe, went in right after him, which kind of inclinated the rest of the group to go in. In which case, when they entered the inside, they realized this was not in fact a dilapidated old burnt down cabin, but was in fact perfectly fine. But it seemingly was just an illusion to dissuade others. See, nobody did the one thing, which was like, I think somebody like tried to like look at some of the wood, but nobody actually tried to like move parts of the building or like really mess with the wood.
Mm-hmm.
So nobody really got to like. That was like your way to realize like, wait, this wood isn't real.
Twilight Zone music.
And yeah, so like nobody really got to have that realization, which is kind of a bummer, but it was fine anyway. They followed you two in anyway, no matter what.
True.
Which Sarenthal had described to you the state of the world, in which the reality of there was two lands in this campaign, Dern and Dalara.
Oh man.
Two lands, because they're the two lands of this peninsula on the continent that they are on, and they are essentially blocked off mostly from the rest of the continent by these impassable mountains in the north of Dalara. Pretty much like there's no way to walk out of these two countries. If you want to leave, you gotta go by boat. However, there's no leaving Dern.
No.
As at this time, Dern is in essentially a very lockdown state of affairs, and they are rounding up any Indol mage or some type arcane caster inside of Dern, and then taking them to the capital to never return. Why? Nobody knows.
Right.
But they know that the rumors essentially that went out there was that supposedly the emperor, who, you know, when at the time of the kind of, I guess you could say, like the like blocking of the rest of the wall, like the world kind of to them, because they built this massive wall on their border.
Mm-hmm. Completely ineffective, by the way. Continue.
I mean, it works in the fact that like when people try to cross it, they get shot.
Fair.
And die. So
Fair.
it works pretty well in that
Pathos
scenario.
made it through.
Yeah, you got teleported by a wizard of immeasurable strength.
Thus the wall doesn't work. But anyways, continue, yes.
Well, that's the thing, is there's nobody. Supposedly, Sarenthal had been long gone.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, the wizard they met revealed himself to be named Sarenthal. So obviously you may recognize his name, as I mentioned it earlier. He disappeared. Why is he here? Well, we'll get to that. So he had eventually, he had as you guys got surrounded in this cabin, you all kind of he made the last ditch effort, last ditch idea to put a bag of holding inside another bag of holding.
Always wise.
Because he had one and Jet found one. He saw it and grabbed it, and you all escaped into the astral plane. Luckily, through his guidance, you were able to not be swallowed up by the great awful beings that exist in the astral plane.
Right, like all those dead gods and aboleths and all that fun jazz.
But you did find yourselves get blown by astral wind into a color pool.
Ooh.
There they went to the world of Arcadia, which there essentially the lord of the land in that realm had recognized their gems and knew of the significance that had been bestowed upon them. That they were to go through, that they could get the item that they needed to attest to fulfill that destiny by going through another mental challenge.
Perfect.
In which to obtain a very special item, because they didn't want to just give it to you.
Right.
It's priceless.
Yes. And then for this item, where did we go? I believe it was some sort of building.
And by the way, so at this point, you guys had been separated from Sarenthal. You four were together, but you were separated from your wizard.
Yeah.
But you also had Poe, so 5 of you.
Yeah.
Yes,
6.
you were.
We had Q.
Right, but Q Q was allowed to go with you, but Poe was not allowed to go with you into this cave, in which you guys went through essentially a series of more mental puzzles and whatnot.
Unfortunate.
And eventually this led you, and it was actually one of my favorite puzzles that I made, where the trick to getting a key, because it was just out of reach, and every time if you tried to like climb on each other or jump, it almost seemed like the key would like consistently go out of reach. But there was a puddle in the middle of the floor that seemed to reflect the key.
Mm-hmm.
And when they were able to reach into it, they could grab the key and pull it, so you could see the key essentially being pulled by nothing and wisp into darkness of the ceiling. And lo and behold, they got the key. That was my favorite. That was one of my favorite puzzles I made.
It was obvious in hindsight, but after putting Jet on my shoulders and seeing Talric just reach in and grab it, yeah.
But no, that puzzle was really fun. So then that's when they got their essentially transporting rod, which allowed them to transport the planes in more of a controlled circumstance. So they were able to go and find and empower these crystals that they were given, because the quest that they were given was essentially empower these crystals so that you can defeat the evil that is within Dern and save the day. Blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
Which eventually led them to the land of Ysgard.
Oh yeah.
Which is they had attempted to. They essentially, upon getting there, conscripted the help of a guild there called the White Owl Bears.
To anybody who's seen
that was fun.
Yeah, to anybody who's seen the latest episode, that's where the medal of the White Owl Bear comes from.
Exactly.
And Pathos still has the armor that they gave him back so long ago.
Mm-hmm. So they conscripted their help, technically became members of them because that was how the land in that part of Ysgard worked. And there they eventually, though, there was an unfortunate event where in the middle of the night, after Pathos had just been exhausted into oblivion, was susceptible to an assassin.
Yeah, he killed me.
You tried to, yes, he had taken him with a cursed dagger.
I died.
But
Again.
he was saved by none other than Poe, who seemingly had sacrificed his life in order to give life to Pathos.
Biggest bro move ever. You guys should definitely do it all the time.
This hit much of the party fairly hard.
Oh yeah.
But shortly thereafter, they had met Celica, seemingly another mysterious agent that needed to find them and help them on their way.
Oh, I could just remember
A drowish. At the time, she was a druid. I did make a somewhat change to making her just a ranger for. It was more for posterity's sake because the Circle of Twilight Druid isn't available on D&D Beyond. It was mostly just because she was an NPC. I didn't really worry about her specifics too much because most of what she did really ever was just use her bow and arrow. Not really. She didn't really do a whole lot in terms of like any wild shaping.
Oh yeah, but she
or anything like that.
She joined up with us when we were in the Beastlands, right?
No, she joined up with you in Ysgard. It was just before you left, though. So she joined you. She helped you get to an altar.
Yeah,
that was
right.
where
okay,
you were then betrayed by the leader of the White Owl Bears. And he showed himself to be the one who conscripted the assassin against your life. And as a result, you properly defeated him. But in a separate timeline, this leader also just killed Pathos as a warlock. But that's a separate timeline.
Both time. Which one was it? Which time did I get naked? No, that was after.
Yeah, so that was in the Beastlands.
Yes.
Then they were eventually they had to go to another. They empowered their first weapon, which was Pathos's spear of fiendish bane.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, his crystal had become a special weapon. Sorry, a very powerful one for the level that they were at. But so eventually, they did eventually go to a land. They eventually transported again, and they went to the Beastlands. However, it wasn't for a crystal, but in fact, seemingly, it was drawn to the power of a wizard caught in some vines. That wizard was Sarenthal.
Oh man!
So they eventually made it to the Beastlands. They picked Sarenthal out of some living wild trees.
By then we'd also stolen the leader of the White Owl Bear, Sheila.
Ah, yes, Sheila.
Yeah, she was with us there, so that was funny.
Sheila made it to the Beastlands with them. They had traveled there because Sarenthal was specifically hunting for a creature there. Eventually, they had found that creature, so they helped him out because Sarenthal was their nice big buddy, and he even had enhanced everybody's weaponry. Nobody had magical weaponry yet, so he was able to enhance everyone's weapons.
Excuse me.
Well, except for yours, but he was able to enhance everybody's weapons so that everybody would be able to do magical damage. It was real nice,
right? Funny enough, around that time too, Pathos was trying to hook Celica and Torek up.
And what did he do? He got naked in front of everybody. What a blocky move, my guy.
Right?
How could you do that to him?
But now Pathos owes Jet 10 gold, I think, because he lost.
Yes, he did.
He lost that bet. But everybody won. pawn scene. That was the first time I had
Yes,
to roll
so-
for dick size.
Yes. So Pathos rolled in a battle in the Beastlands. Pathos rolled a natural one, and it got something that pretty much that made all of his clothes and armor fall off, making him naked. And because we were having fun on an extra live stream,
Oh yeah, that
I
was
did have
actually
him
live.
roll. I did have him roll a d8 for penis size, and he rolled pretty well. So he lucked out on that part at least. However, they eventually did. Then they left the Beastlands, going into their next land, which was weird because it sent them back home, which is strange. Or not really home, but to Dern. So not home in many ways.
Home to one person who didn't want
Home
it
to
be
one
home.
person who didn't want it. Yeah, no, nobody wanted it. So they made it back, and eventually they found themselves getting to a village, and then the village in the next morning saw itself be wrought by the Inquisitors, who up to this point hadn't been too much of a threat because they only met one, and it was a relatively low-ranking one. So they didn't. It was kind of easy. So up to that, it really had been more easy to deal with. But Inquisitors in the land of Dern are those who collect mages. They hunt them down. They take them back, all for the good of the Empire. So this one was particularly brutal, as he had discovered a child that was a mage, and threatened its life if they would not cough up the other mages in the village. However, this child was spared by, I believe, Tariq. It was you or Tariq? I don't remember.
I think it was Tariq.
I believe Tariq was able to save this child's life, and within that was able to you all were able to fight the guards and the Inquisitor, and the Inquisitor seemed to come back a couple times, and that was because oh no, there was some secret badness going on.
Badness.
Yes, as that Inquisitor was inevitably betrayed by someone. Who was that?
Something. Somewhere.
They seemingly, for some reason, our compatriots, our party, saw a familiar face, an old friend, Sarenthal.
Yes.
But he did not look like Sarenthal anymore. Parts of his body features were cracked. Those cracks were glow blue. His eyes were different. Something was off. It was not Sarenthal. He in fact showed him his true name, Sargon.
Bah, bah, bah.
Yes. So now things in Dimension Crisis start to become apparent.
Oh yeah.
Hey Mark, dinner's ready. All right, we'll be up in a bit. That was really good timing.
Oh man.
We're almost done anyway.
Ooh, there's a spike right there. I apologize.
We're almost done anyway.
Yeah.
So yes. So they had made they got themselves. So he seemingly, when he was about to deal a blow, you were all whisked away
Oh yeah.
to a very calm land of Elysium, where Q became, strangely enough, a what looked like a normal elvish man, and my dad's obnoxious. There's nothing I can do about that. So Q in Elysium was more of an elvish man.
And Pathos met his god.
Yes, so they all met the one who had been giving them this guidance all along, and essentially pulling I guess you could say pulling the strings, but mostly like letting the others know, like certain specific people know what their demands would be, like Poe and Silica, which was Tritherion,
Yep.
the god of justice.
Grandpappy Tritherion.
Yes. So, and it was revealed then when they made it. They also met a familiar face while in Elysium, and it was Poe.
Yeah.
Poe
Oh man.
Yeah, that was a big reaction for a lot of you.
Yeah. We're like, he's alive. Not Dylan, Tariq. It's the same guy, but Tariq like had regained some faith in humanity. Pathos had an entire bro moment with Poe.
Yes.
Q was Q.
He in fact then revealed that by being able to sacrifice the essence of his humanity, that was able to awaken himself as a true angel
It was
of
very
Tritherion.
it was very Jesus Christ of him.
Yes. So so he was in Elysium, and he had shown them Tritherion. That was where we pretty much ended that first season because they all went into these hibernation tubes after it was revealed exactly what Zargon was and what his goal was, which he was in fact the so-called undead or undying emperor of Dern, and he was attempting to essentially create an empire in the material plane, which partly he did, but he was not the actual creator of the empire. He just wanted a much darker version of it, the one that he currently has, and it to be much bigger, like the entire world.
Yes.
But
Casual plans.
so they went into hibernation so that they would become stronger, and thus we pretty much get to about where we started now here on the Natural One channel, which you can pretty much go back to. So they awoke from their slumber only to find Pathos and woke up before everyone else, and he tried to go on a mission with Silica in which he failed. They lost the rod to Zargon, and Pathos was taken to a secret place that we will not discuss yet because it will become relevant very soon. It'll actually become relevant by the time this comes out, but I don't want to say it right now as we're recording, just in case we don't get to certain things. So I'm just going to wait on that.
Thank you.
But yeah, so he was taken away, and then eventually the others woke up, and it was revealed that Cedric was in fact the true descendant of one of the crystal owners, but it had become lost somewhere in time, and Seraphina's family had found it. But so she was brought along essentially so that she could get it back safely to Tritherion and essentially to Cedric. So now Cedric joined the party. Seraphina had gone home. However, she did go with Poe, as we have mentioned in recent episodes, in order to essentially warn the Dolaran government about the impending doom that is coming from Dern. And as much as they could, though they're tough to believe, even though Poe was an actual angel. It worked on the king at least.
At least.
and his right hand, which though was still relatively critical, hard to, as he put it, hard to argue against somebody that just sprouts giant angel wings.
Yeah, no, if they were to do that, I'd be like, yeah, here's my wallet.
So
Just
yeah,
take
they
it, man. Like,
and then so kind of getting up into timelines now. They made it back to Dern. They met Cassidy. They had the whole sequence of events versus the Retrievers. Took Cassidy with them. They met Kristoff, who's played by Peyton.
great guy.
And then they eventually found themselves into a weird dungeon after essentially Silica was kidnapped by a shadowy figure and took into a portal, which went into a fiery realm. They all thought was hell. There's no answer as to what it is yet. Nobody's tried to figure it out.
Mega hell.
No, but so they fought a fire creature there. It then took them into a portal after Silica took Cassidy back to Elysium. And they all went in where they were subjected to a very tricky kind of divine being who put them through this dungeon where they met you, and you came back to the show.
Yep, by rolling a DC 30 wisdom saving throw.
So yes, they were able to make it in, and eventually got Pathos back. Eventually make it out, and they popped themselves back into Delara, and we're pretty much at where we are now. I know, it's a crazy ride.
Yeah, so they're all caught up. 2 years.
Yeah,
It's been crazy.
we went very heavy, obviously, on the first season / first like couple year or so. That was because that's obviously where most of the stuff is missing. That's where all the Dimension Crisis stuff, is also missing from this channel. Everything else in terms of the season we are currently on for Shadows of an Empire is on our Twitch page and VODs, and eventually are going to be on our YouTube page. So don't worry, we're working on getting those around, at least like the later VODs. But otherwise, if you want to know more about what's happened, at least in this season, those VODs are available for the most part. Obviously, like we mentioned at the beginning, there's a couple hiccups, but for the most part, they are there.
And yeah.
So how has it been for you?
It's been hella fun the entire time, especially with the news episodes. It might just be me missing being Pathos and being with everybody, but the entire time I'm just having a blast.
Well, that's always good. And there's more to come. So make sure you tune in to our episodes on twitch.tv/natural1rpg in the link below as well. Give that a follow, and you can catch our episodes every Wednesday night. And this, however, in the near future, we may change this time slightly. So but for now, it's the right time.
Right.
And that time currently is starting at 8 p.m. Central Time every Wednesday. Check it out.
It's a lot of fun.
Come say hi in the chat. We won't generally say hi to you directly, but we'll type in the chat with you. That's generally our response because it's much easier to do it than to distract everybody.
Send us a meme. We always love
talking
those.
to chat. So yes, we if you want to chat, go right ahead. We will talk to you. It's just we'll talk in chat with you.
Yes.
Because we were trying to keep the video itself pure and a pure session.
As much as we can. Where then I start interluding with like random jokes and whatnot. Yes. Cardboard cutout Cedric is my favorite.
But yeah, so we are finally set off on this story, and that is also the end of the podcast.
Yeah,
I believe it.
Well, no, actually, but yeah. Hey guys, you made it again. One more.
A lot of me in this episode.
Just because you know what you're talking about.
But it was just because it was me telling the story, but it was obviously you've been along for the ride.
Yeah. It's pretty much been detrimental to how it's been the last few years.
But it has been, I have loved this campaign. I've loved running this story for you guys. And I am very excited to run more in the future in many of the capacities that we are planning on doing for here on Natural One. Shadows of an Empire is not the only show we will ever be doing on Natural One. Expect more in the future. And if you want more live streams and you want potential ways of doing it, let us know in the comments. Otherwise, if you ever wanted us to do any other types of... by the way, I wanted to open this up. If you ever have a topic that you would like us to cover, please also put that in the comments below.
Oh, yeah. We love talking, especially.
And we would love to hear what you want us talk about, what you want to hear. I screwed that up, so it was bad. But
no, don't worry. We'll fix it in post. Like right now.
That definitely not happening.
It's not happening, no.
But this has been my friend Francisco.
And this is my friend Marshall.
And this has been the Tilted Roll Podcast, Shadows of an Empire recap. And we will see you next time, adventure.
Bye. Love you guys.